My name is Harold Bennett, and I am 71 years old. I did not come to understand myself through a dramatic event or a sudden revelation. There was no accident, no argument, no moment where everything fell apart at once. Instead, the truth arrived quietly, the way most important things seem to at this stage of life. It was last winter. The house was empty again after a family gathering. Coats had been taken from the hooks, dishes stacked neatly in the sink, leftovers packed into containers with dates written on masking tape. I sat alone at the kitchen table, long after the lights outside had gone dark, my hands wrapped around a mug that had already gone cold. That was when it occurred to me, not as a sentence, not even as a thought at first, but as a weight in my chest, that for most of my life I had confused being needed with being loved. It took me a long time to put words to that feeling. Even now I'm not sure I have them exactly right. But once the idea settled in me, it stayed, heavy, unavoidable, like the awareness of age itself, something you cannot unknow once you've noticed it. At 71, time does not stretch forward the way it once did. It doesn't feel open or generous. It feels accounted for. Most of the days I will ever live are already behind me. The people who knew me best are either gone or moving quietly toward their own endings. I'm not telling this story to ask for comfort or absolution. I don't need reassurance. I'm simply stating what took me 7 decades to understand, in case someone else might still be young enough to hear it differently. For most of my life, I believed my value came from my usefulness. I was the man you called when something broke, when a pipe burst in the middle of the night, when a machine stalled, when a decision had to be made quickly, or when money ran short and someone needed to know what to do next. I took pride in that role. It gave me a shape, a purpose. I wore it the way a man wears a well-pressed shirt, something that made him feel respectable and necessary in the world. When I was younger, in my 20s and 30s, this belief didn't seem misguided. I wasn't chasing admiration or luxury. I wasn't trying to be exceptional. I was working. I was reliable. I was doing what men like me had been taught to do: show up, provide, solve problems, and keep moving. I worked as a facilities supervisor at a manufacturing plant just outside town. It wasn't glamorous work, but it was steady. The kind of job where, if everything was functioning properly, no one noticed you at all. But when something failed, when the lights went out or a system malfunctioned, suddenly everyone knew your name. I liked that feeling. I liked being the answer. I married young. Margaret and I met at a diner where she worked the morning shift. She had tired eyes even then, though I didn't know how to read that yet. She smiled easily, and she listened in a way that made you feel like you mattered. We didn't talk much about dreams or long-term plans. We talked about practical things: schedules, rent, groceries, what day the trash went out. It felt responsible. It felt adult. When our first child was born, I worked late that same week. I told myself it was necessary: overtime pay, stability, doing the right thing. One night, I stood in the doorway of the nursery, still wearing my work boots, watching my daughter sleep. I didn't pick her up because I didn't want to wake her. I told myself that counted. Margaret rarely complained. That made it easy to miss what was happening. She managed the children. She managed the house. She carried the invisible labor, the kind that doesn't come with praise or clear outcomes. I handled what people could see and point to: repairs, bills, decisions. When she asked me to attend parent-teacher meetings, I usually couldn't. When she asked me to take a day off, I said maybe next month. I always said next month. At work, people depended on me, and they said it out loud. "We'd be lost without you, Harold. Don't know what we'd do if you weren't here." Those words filled something inside me. They justified the long hours. They made absence feel noble. At home, no one said much at all. I didn't take that as a warning. I assumed silence meant everything was fine. Years passed without drama, no shouting matches, no ultimatums, just routines slowly hardening into habits. I fixed things. I solved problems. I missed dinners. I missed school plays. I missed the quiet conversations that happen when no one is in a hurry and nothing needs to be resolved. Once, my son asked me if I could help him with a science project. I remember telling him to ask his mother instead, because I had an early shift the next morning. He nodded and went back to his room. That was the end of the conversation. I didn't think about it again for decades. Margaret began to pull away long before I noticed, not with anger, with fatigue. She spoke less. When she stopped asking me to come places, I felt relief. I thought we had reached an understanding. Only later did I realize she had simply stopped expecting anything. The damage didn't arrive all at once. It came in fragments. A birthday missed, a conversation postponed, a habit of saying later until later lost all meaning. When the children grew up and moved out, the house felt too large, too quiet. I told myself that was normal. I worked more. It was easier than sitting across from Margaret at the table, trying to remember how to talk to her without a list of tasks between us. She died when I was 64, not suddenly, an illness that took its time. I attended every appointment. I handled the paperwork. I coordinated care. I managed logistics. I was very needed. What I was not, at least not anymore, was close. Near the end, in the hospital room, she held my hand. Her grip was weak but intentional. She looked at me and said, "You were always so busy." There was no accusation in her voice, just a statement of fact, the kind that no longer requires defense. I nodded. I didn't know what to say then. I still don't. After she died, people told me I had been a good provider, a solid man, reliable. They said she was lucky to have me. I thanked them, because disagreeing felt inappropriate, and because I didn't yet know how to explain what felt wrong. The weeks after the funeral were full of tasks, closing accounts, sorting belongings, returning medical equipment. People called constantly, needing updates, decisions, confirmations, and then gradually the calls stopped. That was when the quiet truly arrived. I noticed how rarely anyone asked how I was doing, how few people sat with me without an agenda. I realized I didn't know how to be with others unless there was a problem to solve. My children visit. They care, but they don't linger. We talk about practical things, repairs, weather, schedules. They don't ask about my inner life. I don't blame them. I never invited them into it. Last winter, after Christmas dinner, once everyone had gone home, I sat alone at the table. The food had been catered. Everything was efficient, easy. I looked around and tried to remember the last time someone stayed simply to be with me. Not to help, not to check on me, just to sit. I couldn't recall a single instance. That was when everything finally came into focus. All those years I felt secure because I was needed. But need is conditional. It disappears when the problem is solved. Love does not operate that way. Being needed gave me rules. Show up, fix the issue, move on. Being loved requires something less structured, presence, patience, time without a clear purpose. I avoided that without realizing I was avoiding it. There are things I cannot repair now. Conversations that will never happen. Apologies with nowhere left to land. I cannot go back and sit on the floor helping with that science project. I cannot take Margaret out to dinner simply to listen to her talk about nothing important. Those moments are gone, not dramatically, just permanently. I don't punish myself for it. I made choices that made sense at the time. I was trying to be responsible, useful, good. But I was wrong about what mattered most. If you are younger and reading this, I won't tell you how to live. I only know what my life taught me. People will always need something. Work will always demand more. There will always be another urgent problem. And there will almost never be a moment when someone says, "Now is the perfect time to just be with me." That time does not announce itself. I wish I had understood that being depended on is not the same as being missed. That silence does not equal contentment. That love does not keep score the way duty does. If this resonates with you, you don't need to act immediately. Just notice who stays when there is nothing to fix. As for me, my days are quieter now. I make my coffee slowly. I sit by the window longer than necessary. Some days I feel the weight of what I failed to give. Some days I feel grateful for what I did. Both truths can exist at once. I don't have a grand conclusion, only an acceptance. I was needed for a long time, and that felt like enough. It wasn't. But this is the life I have left, and for the first time, I am truly paying attention to it.